Hello everyone. It's James again. And today I wanted to talk about a very important topic. One that hits home for me. And for those of you that are long-time subscribers will understand why. And I will leave a link to this news story in the description box below. Kayla Horn of North Texas, who is 18 years old, was hanging out with another friend of hers that is 18 years old also. And they then went out to hang out with other people that were older. And they went to an after-hours club. And they were drinking things they shouldn't be drinking. Kayla was feeling sick. So she went back to the car, where she later got sick and I assume threw up. When the group of people she went with or were there with discovered that she threw up in the car, assuming it was their car she threw up in, they began to beat her up, stole her phone and jewelry, which landed Kayla in the hospital. In the news story, Kayla's aunt is there, explaining why none of them should have been drinking, and doesn't know why those that put Kayla in the hospital weren't charged with more than robbery, when they clearly tried to take Kayla's life. Look. And those of you that know me and know my story on this channel, we've talked about this before, haven't we? The woman that brought her friends on a trip to Mexico, where her so-called friends beat her until she was no longer living in their hotel room, while one of the so-called friends filmed it and others egged it on. And there are so many others that happen with this same pattern. And my story? When I was a teenager, I was lured by a so-called friend to a certain area of town, where I was beaten up much like Kayla was beaten up. But who was around to tell Kayla, these people aren't your friends? And I'm not trying to blame the aunt, because I don't know. Maybe Kayla's parents are no longer living. Or maybe Kayla's parents aren't fit to be parents. I don't know. But I have to wonder what is happening. Because normally it would be a mother or father there at their 18-year-old daughter's side after something like this happened. But it's an aunt. Again. I'm not saying anything is wrong. It just makes me wonder. And the reason why I can say that is because I had no love at home. With my narcissist mother and my father was no longer living. It was easy to fall for, hey man, we are best friends, and all that junk, with someone that was in no way, shape or form my best friend. This was a guy that was rough around the edges to say the least. But I felt there was a good side to him. The truth was, the only good side to him was a complete act. And on top of it, he had really rough, shady friends that I only occasionally was around when I was around my so-called friend. And just like in narcissistic form or fashion, he kept these people away from me for a good while. Until it appeared he thought he had me hooked as a loyal friend. I thought we both grew up in bad situations. And maybe we could be of help to one another. And even in bad situation I was in, I was always trying to encourage him, instead of trying to encourage myself. Why? Because I didn't have a parent telling me what I was worth and telling me, there are people in the world that are plain and utter evil. They don't have inside of them what we have inside of us. Meaning love, care and empathy. They didn't have to use the word narcissist. They could have just used the word evil. But you see, I think my mother knew what this so-called friend was. Because I believe she knew what my ex Susie was and is. You see, narcissist parents love to see their children get mixed up in bad dating relationships. And bad friendships as well. Also they can feed on your pain. And for those of you that know my story, my so-called friend came over to pick me up so we could go hang out. And I forgot something in my room. I think my wallet. So I went to go get it. And when I came back into the room my mother and this so-called friend were in. My mother abruptly stopped talking. And there was an awkward silence. When in the car, this so-called friend seemed to turn cold and angry towards me. As if I did something wrong. And he said, your mother doesn't want you to live there anymore and I think you shouldn't either. A week later, I was being jumped and beaten up quite badly. Much like Kayla was. And I believe this so-called friend was at the head of having me lured and gave the go-ahead to some of his shady friends to beat me up. And when telling this story a while back here on this channel, a subscriber asked, "Do you think your mother had something to do with it?" And it made me think and realize. Yes. Indirectly I think she did. I believe she was running the smear campaign on me. Which was nothing new. Although because I was young, I always fell for trying to trust her again and again and again. But knowing this so-called friend, I could hear and see him saying, "Don't worry. I will take care of James for you." And my mother, knowing or not knowing what the end result would be, likely said, "Good." You see. Much like I was hanging out with someone I had no business hanging out with. Kayla should have never been with these rough characters. And I don't say that to blame her. Because besides the drinking, which she should have never been doing, she likely really saw the friend she went with as a true friend. Again, I don't know her situation. But if she doesn't have a mother or father in her life, she might have seen her friend much like I saw my so-called friend. That we were from the same bad situation and we can help one another. Almost like brothers. But in Kayla's case, sisters. If her so-called friend was a young woman. And this goes back to, oftentimes, those that have gone through or that are going through narcissistic abuse. But don't even know what narcissistic abuse is just yet. Will see others as brothers or sisters that are nowhere near a brother or sister at all. And you see, in my case, I don't believe my so-called friend did what he did solely based on the words of my mother. Because I believe he was itching to do something evil to me. However, it was the words of my mother I believe that allowed him to scratch that itch and have me beaten up. Because even though I was proud of my so-called friend for anything good that might have come his way, if something good came my way, he always would down-talk it, or put me down in front of others. Then later on he would make things so-called right by talking me up and saying how good of friends we were. Then he would put me down again. And in Kayla's case, I wouldn't be shocked if she was in the same dynamic. Yes. It's not a fun experience to see someone getting sick in your car. But a car can be cleaned. They didn't care to see if Kayla was okay. But they likely yanked her out of the car and beat her within an inch of her life and then robbed her. And they were likely itching to do what they did to her for a long time. And it was her getting sick in the car that gave them the green light to do what they did. You see, narcissists can't stand you. And they truly hate you. And in such a group setting like this one, the empath or the one with love in their heart, no matter there be drinking and all kinds of stuff going on, they know who you are. In the video in the news clip, it shows that Kayla loved doing hair. How much you want to bet? She would do her friend's hair. And not charge them any money. Again. If this were the case, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked. And this group of evil people can see. Kayla has a soul. She has a conscience. And she knows right from wrong. And she acts accordingly. But that group of so-called people, entities is a better word. They don't have that. They are evil to the core. And just like my so-called friend, any good you see is just an act. An act to pull you in. To figure you out and to take what you've got. Or to cause you harm for their own sadistic pleasure. Stomping someone on the ground and beating them like that is demonic. And as we've talked about before, there are those that say, narcissists just pick people because they are there. And true enough, they can. But some of these same people will say, narcissistic abuse survivors overinflate their importance and say they were picked because of their light. Or because of this or that. And they say how delusional and wrong this is. But every time we see one of these stories, it's always the one that seems that has the light that shines the brightest that these entities do this to. The woman that lost her life in Mexico. She was not only physically beautiful, but she cared enough about her friends that didn't have the finances that she had, that she wanted to pay for all of them to go on the trip to Mexico to have a good time. And the narcissist hates that. How is it that you are doing good things simply because that's who you are? You see, the narcissist does good things to trap people or to obligate them, or to confuse them. So it's difficult for them to see what is going on. So it's hard for their target to just get up and leave. But these people that lose their life, or get beaten up, or robbed, they seem to give from their heart. Because in their mind they see a real friendship there, even though there is none. And this genuine nature, or light some people call it, narcissists hate. Because it reminds them how evil and empty they truly are. Because remember, they can't feel anything positive by doing positive. And when you or others can feel this good feeling, it drives them nuts. So they have to stomp it out. And in some cases they literally try to stomp it out. This is why if you have kids, it might be wise to find a way to let them know that there are people in the world that don't have the same feelings that you or your kid has. You might say, you know, when you see that someone is sick or hurt, you feel bad, right? Well, there are some people in the world that don't feel bad. And being around such people is not a wise idea. Then teach them how to spot people like this. The truth is, a strong foundation at home can greatly reduce one's involvement with such people. Nothing is for sure, but it would greatly help. But yet the societal narcissists keep on pushing the broken family as something to aspire to. And I wonder why? Not really. Because we know why. Because they want you to come back for more abuse, hoping this time will be different. Well, with the narcissist it will never be different. Even if they give you a day or two of so-called peace and friendship. Because what happened to Kayla and myself, and many others out there, I bet these so-called friends have been talking about doing this to her for months. Why? Because she is likely a genuine person. Yes. She was out there making mistakes, drinking when she shouldn't have been. But she thought she belonged and she thought she was with friends. And I would bet there were moments where she was mistreated some. But she, just like I did, shrugged it off. But from the news story, they said she now has trust issues. Just like most of us here in the narcissistic abuse community. I'm pretty sure now she realizes who and what these individuals were and are. And I'm sorry she had to go through such a thing, and she now has trust issues. But if someone could have told her and all of us a long time ago that entities like this exist, maybe we could have sidestepped this entire mess. But it didn't happen like that. All we can do is our best to move forward and to build a positive life. But again, people really need to learn about what makes evil people, aka narcissistic. Because your life can literally depend on it. With that said, I do hope your day is blessed. And until next time, bye for now. And be good to yourself.